Hi. I'm Tony.
Maria.
Maria? Oh, I won't forget your... I struggle sometimes with names when I first hear them. My wife's name's Maria, so if I forget yours, that would be really bad. Do you have an opinion?
I do.
What's yours?
Well, I think the way you phrased it is kind of broad, but I think it's justified as long as it's not able to live on its own, outside the womb.
Okay. Can you tell me when a baby can live on his or her own outside the womb?
No, but can you inform me?
Well, a baby. Hey, how are you? I'm Tony.
Hi, I'm John.
John and
I'm Molly.
I'm sorry.
Molly.
Molly. Nice to meet you. And I take it you know Maria.
Yeah.
Okay, good. A baby, when a baby is born, if that baby is left in the delivery room alone, that baby is not going to be able to take care of him or herself. Right? A baby who's a year to 2 years old will not be able to take care of him or herself outside the womb. Will not be able to provide food and shelter or clothing. Won't be able to change its own diapers. Right? So if the position is abortion is okay up to the point where a baby can take care of itself, or a baby can live on its own, then if we follow that logic out, it should be okay for mothers to murder their children at the age of 1 or 2 or 3 years old. Or if something happens to their child, and their child who was able to provide some care for itself is no longer able to, then euthanizing that child should be okay then too, because the child can no longer take care of himself. See where that reasoning breaks down? Yeah?
You want me to take over? I know you like to argue.
Oh no, I'm not looking for an argument. I'm looking for a friendly conversation.
I thought you were the one who said that, so I didn't want to interrupt.
I mean, you can. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, your first name again is?
I'm John.
John and Molly. Okay. Maria's my wife's name, and so that's why I've already memorized Maria's name. So Maria's assertion, and correct me if I mess it up. Maria's assertion was that abortion is justified up until the point that the baby is viable, I guess would be the word, can take care of itself.
Well, I think your definition of taking care of itself and my definition are a little different.
What would yours be then? Because I certainly don't want to put words in your mouth.
If you take it out, as long as you're feeding it and stuff, it's going to be able to live and survive. It doesn't have to be necessarily its mother, but you're saying it's able to feed itself and take care of itself. I had a little bit different.
Okay, but still, it comes down to viability, and no baby is viable in the womb without the mother feeding the baby. No baby is viable outside the womb without the mother or someone feeding the baby.
Yeah.
Right? So if viability is the benchmark, is the standard, then it should be okay to kill babies up until the point they are able to be independent of someone else's help.
Is that what you said?
That's no. Well, she stopped at viability regarding abortion. I carried that out beyond the womb to show where that reasoning goes.
Yeah.
If viability is the place where abortion is okay or not okay, a 1-year-old, a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old child
can't take care of it.
It's not viable.
When you said viable, did you mean they can live?
Yeah, just live in general. There's a point where if you take it out too early, it's not going to survive no matter what, no matter who's taking care of it. But there's a point when you go past that where it will be able to.
So then I guess I'd have to ask, how long does the child have to be able to live?
You mean have a full
have
life?
a full life, yeah.
No, not as far, but you said breathe, and I was,
be able to grow into a full human being. I guess. I don't know.
Okay. So again, my point is that we are talking about viability. We are talking about a certain level of independence. You know, maybe your assertion of...
It doesn't necessarily have to be independent, just the ability to survive and live its life.
Okay, so how long does the child have to be able to survive and live his or her life?
You or I would be able to survive.
Okay, so then again, I think my position has merit, because if you leave a child alone outside of the womb, it's not going to live to see college.
Yeah.
It's not going to live a newborn baby outside of the womb, left alone, is not going to see more than a few days of life before the baby dies.
Yeah.
So how long does a baby have to be able to live?
I'm not saying left alone. I'm just saying, like, my problem isn't the left alone part. Like,
Okay.
I'm including, like, someone taking care of it as part of
Okay.
it.
Okay. Well, the baby growing inside the womb is being taken care of by its mother.
Yeah.
So again, what the argument comes down to is location and age of the child. The only difference between what I'm offering and what you're offering is the location and age of the child.
Would you describe it as more of like based off of specifically like subsisting off somebody else's body directly though? I'm sorry.
Well, no, it's okay, Molly. No, but every newborn child is subsisting off of someone else.
Yeah.
Someone has to provide for that child, whether it's through an umbilical cord or through a bottle. Someone else is meeting the needs of that child, right? So again, it remains the only difference between the justification for abortion in some cases and what I'm offering is the location and age of the child. So then the standard becomes completely arbitrary.
Well, I wouldn't say completely arbitrary, because at like 2 weeks, I'm not an expert on how many weeks, but like at 2 weeks or something, really early stage, then it's not even resembling like a person, because it's literally still just a clump of cells. So
Well, neither science nor the legal community agree with the description of a baby in utero as a clump of cells.
yeah, I know. I'm not.
Okay.
That's not a scientific or any like. I didn't mean that as,
Okay.
as like any sort of
'Cause
any textbook definition.
Because
at all.
for instance, if Molly was pregnant and someone murdered Molly, and as a result the baby dies in her womb, regardless of the age of the baby, regardless of where she is in the gestation period, that murderer is charged with 2 counts of murder, not 1. It's charged with ending the life of 2 human beings, not 1. Whether she's 4 weeks pregnant or 39 weeks pregnant,
Okay.
that person's charged with 2 counts of murder.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion on that.
Oh, okay. Oh,
I just specifically on like on abortion. If it's early, like specifically, I mean like, because we were talking about if it's viable outside the womb, like
Mhm.
no matter who's caring for it, like. But if it's super early, if it's at 4 weeks, there's nothing if you were to remove that, if you were to remove the fetus at 4 weeks, it would not survive no matter how much care you gave it.
Mhm.
So, like, I know this is like we're far apart right now, but I would say definitely early in the stage,
Mhm.
like at 4 weeks, I would say it's justified at that point.
And how old are you, John?
I'm 20.
Okay, John, if you were at the age of 20, if you were on life support, and if you were taken off life support, you had no way to survive, should we just let you die then?
That's not necessarily.
Oh, okay.
I haven't
Because
thought like
because a 4-week-old child in utero, you're saying if you remove that baby from the mother's body and it can't survive on its own, then abortion would be justified in that case because the baby can't survive on its own. Okay, if you at the age of 20 found yourself on life support,
Yeah.
then following that reasoning, it would be Yeah, unfortunately, the baby inside the womb isn't her body.
That's your opinion.
No, that's actually true. Okay, so again, the point, again, we're going back to viability. You know, your argument is one of viability. If at 4 weeks the child cannot live outside of the womb,
Yeah.
then that would justify the abortion of the child because the child is not old enough, in a sense, to live outside the womb.
Yeah, only obviously if the mother wanted it, you know, obviously.
Okay, so now, okay.
Or if the couple wanted it, or anything,
Okay.
like if they chose to do that.
Okay, so then if the argument is whether or not the parent wants the child, if that is the justification for ending the life of a child, then the only difference then of a mother of a 3-year-old killing her child is the location and age of the child. If a mother of a 3-year-old decides,
Give a check mark for me. My hands are full.
where at? Under what?
Sometimes.
Okay, I will. I will. So again, the only difference between the mother of a 3-year-old deciding I no longer want this child and killing the child is the age and location of the baby.
Yeah, well, I would say that's because a 3-year-old is a person and the fetus is not a person.
Okay, and by what standard have you determined that a baby in a womb is not a person?
Because it isn't, well, first of all, it isn't even independent of the mother biologically. I mean, when you talk about dependence on the mother, that's like a social thing. It isn't biological. The baby is not like hooked up to the mother. Like, I know that's not the right
Sure, I understand.
medical term, but like social or on any parent, at 3 years old, the baby is just depending on them for food and shelter through a social role, whereas the baby or the fetus is still part of the mother's body. At 4 weeks.
It's still biological, because without food and water, the baby dies.
Yeah.
The baby ceases to function biologically.
Yeah, it's a biological need, but it's not a biological connection.
It still is, in that the baby needs to be provided for.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's not merely social. Without someone providing for the needs of that child, the child is going to die.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Tony.
Hello.
And
Joe.
I'm sorry?
Joe.
Joe, good to meet you, Joe.
But it's a social role. I understand it's a biological need, but it's not a biological. Don't have to. I would just say connection because I don't have a better word.
So I want to try to explain what, and I hope you can see what's happening here, is that every time I address your reason to justify abortion, you move on to another reason, or you add to that reason. We've gone now from viability, right, to now biological versus social constructs.
Yeah.
You're still justifying the end of a human life.
Well, I don't think fetus at 4 weeks is a human life.
Okay. Doesn't matter what we believe. Doesn't matter what we believe. What matters is whether or not what we believe is true. Okay. So, hang in there, buddy. So, if I determine for myself that you are not a human life, am I justified in killing you?
No.
Why?
Well, first of all,
I have the same standard.
Well, first of all, like, there's a legal ramification, and by everybody else's standard, I am a human being.
No. If it's up to the individual to determine the standard, I'm just telling you right now. First of all, this is hypothetical.
Yeah.
I have no intention of harming you.
I know.
I believe you are a human being, and I believe murder is wrong.
Yeah,
okay. All right. But if it's up to the individual to determine that moral standard for themselves as to who is a human and who is not, then I have the right to determine that you're not a human.
I'm not saying it necessarily is up to the human, or it is up to the individual to determine what is a human life. I am just saying that is what human life is, and given...
I'm sorry, what is human life? We'll go to Joe's question now. What is human life?
So a human life is a human being that operates, I would say in this case specifically, independently of a mother.
Okay, so then, those who cannot operate independently of a mother therefore are not human. That's what you're saying.
Those who are not independent of another
What do
body.
you mean by
Oh, hang on, Joe. Hang on, Joe. All right. So then, everyone who is either on life support or needs assistance to breathe or needs assistance to eat, therefore it is justifiable for us to kill them.
No, because they're independent beings.
They're not independent beings. They're completely dependent on the care of others.
Because you could put a fetus in life support, and then it would be independent of the mother and be classified as a human according to your definition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you need to find a better definition if you want to justify your stance.
I did say if it's 1 day before birth, then I guess my position right now would be it's not justified if it's 1 day before birth.
What about 2?
I know where you're going.
So you're going to viability outside of the womb.
We've
As long
already-
as the baby
yeah,
can
we've already
survive
talked.
Without life support, you consider it
without
human,
without the
and
support
therefore
of its mother,
unjustifiable to kill.
yeah. Without the support of its mother.
Well, I mean, a 10-month-old baby can't
Right.
survive without its mother.
Right.
Yeah, but it can survive without the connection to its mother, because it can be an independent human being and just be dependent on its mother for needs.
Right. So your criterion is infant viability. Can it survive outside of
Yeah.
the uterus? That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's independent viability.
Right. And anybody who needs care is not independently viable,
Why is that your criterion?
because it's the only one that he can justify the death of the unborn with.
It's not an independent human being if it's biologically connected to
Why
its
is
mother.
that important?
Because it's not. Well, he asked what my definition. You both asked actually what my definition of human life is, and my definition of human life is you're independent biologically of any other human. In this case, the mother.
But why is that morally relevant?
Okay, now well, hang on now. Now, you've again changed it. You went from independent of the mother or anyone else, is what you just said. Independent of the mother or anyone else, is what you just said. You went from not being biologically connected to the mother to now not being dependent upon the mother or anyone else.
When I said not dependent on them, well, when I'm talking about dependency on someone else, or the mother or otherwise, I'm talking about biological needs, so like food, so like babies need food. But if I'm biologically, I'm just talking about, so you both asked, what is a human life? And I said you have to be, one of my criteria for that is you have to be independent of the mother, biologically, not for, and then we all need needs, obviously, so biologically, if you're independent of your mother, you are a human life.
Okay, so now that's your standard. What about your standard is not arbitrary? What about your standard is universal and applicable to the rest of us to follow?
By that definition, every standard is not universal. There's no such thing as universal standards here.
Well, no, there actually is. There actually is. Yeah.
The thing is
hopefully we'll get to that. But
I was specifically addressing the human life, not necessarily whether it's right or wrong. I'm specifically answering your question as to whether what a human life is, and I would not consider someone who is part of another human being to be an independent being.
Okay.
What do you mean by part of another human being?
As in, you are in your mother's womb and connected
but
to your mother.
inside of the uterus is technically outside of the mother's body. Like something inside of my stomach is technically outside of my body.
Well, I would not necessarily agree with that. And I would
That's
say
because you use a layperson's idea of what inside.
the baby is not part of the woman's body. The baby is inside the woman's body. The baby is not part of the woman's body.
Like if I
the baby
you're
is
inside of my body, but
the baby has his or her own DNA. The baby has his or her own blood type. The baby has his or her own fingerprints. The baby is an entirely separate individual who is inside the mother's body. But the baby is not the baby's not an appendix.
Yeah, well, what I'm saying is when you eat a piece of food, it's inside you and it isn't part of you.
No,
it's not part of you
necessarily. But if but the baby is connected to the mother through the cord, through the umbilical cord.
Yes.
So and it's connected to the mother.
Okay.
And it's growing to be an independent human being, but I would say it is not an independent human being.
Right. And again, you'd have to define independence, and your efforts to define independence has made it possible for me to kill those who are not independent. I'm just using your standard of independence. I'm justified to kill those who are not independent.
Yeah, but I mean.
Okay, well that's wicked.
Well, all of us.
Because I shouldn't kill mentally retarded people who are not independent. I shouldn't kill those who are injured.
Independent in a biological sense only, not independent on a social level. Like, do you have enough money to survive, etc. Only on a are you an independent being of your mother?
Why do you care whether or not a fetus can survive outside of the uterus?
I was only commenting just now. I was only commenting on what is a human life.
Right. You've made that your criterion, but why is that specifically your criterion? Why didn't you pick something else, like, I don't know, cognitive ability, or whether there's a soul, or I don't know, something like that.
So I have to check the time because eventually I do have to go. But my only point is that if it's a human life, you can't kill it. I'm obviously on that page, but I would say that something that is biologically connected to its mother is not a human life because it's still part of its mother. Therefore, it is up to you what you want to do with your own body, because I would say
you're not doing something with your own body. You're doing something to another body.
But I would not recognize it as an independent.
That's irrelevant.
If a cancerous tumor, would you consider that part of your body?
Yeah.
Really interesting.
So you seem like you need to go soon, so I want to kind of get to the point.
Okay.
At least my point, anyways.
Okay.
A point. Each and every one of us were created in the image of God, including the child in the womb. God has numbered the hairs on our head. He's determined our days before there was even one of them. Every human being is created in the image of God. God has determined that standard. It's not an arbitrary standard. It's a universal standard that applies to everyone. And He's given each and every one of us a conscience. We know the difference between right and wrong. We know that the taking of another human life is wrong. We know that. And so what mankind has done throughout the ages in order to justify the murder of other human beings is to determine that those other human beings weren't human or less than human. We did it in our country with the Native Americans. We did it in our country with blacks during the times of slavery. The Germans did it in their country with not only Jews, but homosexuals and people of color and people with mental and physical disabilities. That's what mankind has done because of the wickedness of his heart, is saying, well, how can I justify what I know is wrong in my conscience? I'll say they're not human.
Do you want to take over the God argument? Because I have to go to class.
Oh yeah,
you don't have to explain necessarily. Okay. All right, I have to go. I'll see you later.
Okay.
Have fun.
And I don't mean to be rude either, but I just have a few more minutes because my daughter gets out of class here shortly. So.
I was just gonna say, like, if you're interested in talking to someone who's working from a different premise, I agree with the premise with that working from independence is arbitrary. So I have like the cognitive ability standpoint, or not even really the cognitive ability standpoint, but the quality standpoint, where I basically value off the level of human experience that's possible. So if someone can't form memories, I don't value them.
Okay.
That's a bit harsh, yeah.
That's somewhat arbitrary as well, don't you think?
Well, everything's arbitrary, and
well, no, not everything is arbitrary.
Is the God criterion, which is a controversial and not universally accepted.
Yeah, I would argue that while it's not universally accepted, it's universally known, and that mankind.
There would be no such thing as an atheist.
Well, there are no such things as atheists.
Oh, so you're a presuppositionalist, which I think is a really dumb position because.
Based on what standard?
Because you're basically calling every single atheist a liar, and I find it very hard to believe that 2 billion people lie to themselves about something that important.
Yeah, I believe that the number is higher, because the Word of God says that God is true, though every man is found to be a liar.
Yeah.
So every human being lies.
If it's really the case that the truth of God is carved into every person's heart, then there would not be atheists. I guarantee it.
Well, right, exactly. I agree. There aren't.
But there are. Only an idiot would want to do that, and there's no one.
No, it's no. See, it's not an issue of intelligence.
Yeah,
it's not an issue of intelligence or a lack thereof. It's an issue. It's an issue of a sinful nature that hates God, and so will suppress the truth by their unrighteousness. Professing to be wise, they render themselves fools, and they worship the person in the mirror rather than the Creator, who they know.
Are selfish, and
well, yeah, that's sin.
And if they're selfish, then they would selfishly recognize how stupid it is to deny God, so that they ultimately deny heaven, which is the ultimate happiness that they're after. Ultimately, which doesn't make any sense.
Sure does. It makes. No, it does. Well, Joe, it may not make sense to you, but it does make sense because of mankind's sinful nature. And because of his hatred for God, he doesn't want heaven.
Does someone pick their own nature?
No,
nature is something that you're born with.
Right.
Something that you don't control over, and so I find it morally reprehensible that we'd be blameworthy of our nature. If it were something that we actually chose,
but Joe, that would
the only person to blame is the Creator.
No, but Joe, the only reason you find it reprehensible is because you hate the God you know.
If I knew God.
Yeah. Well, see. That's just it.
At this point,
I wish I could stay.
Because all you've done is accuse me of being a liar, and I'm not. But that's fine.
Okay. Have a good day. See you next Monday. I will be here next. You and I had hardly any time to talk. That's okay. But I'm usually here on Monday, so stop by again. I'd love to continue the conversation.